Hey guys, I just wanted to do a follow-up on my stove video. And one of the things I meant to talk about that I didn't was types and fuel sources of stoves. Really, there's two categories. There's electric stoves and then there's burning fuel source stoves. And when it comes to the burning fuel source stoves, there's a lot of different options. You can go with propane, butane, alcohol, even diesel. And out of all the choices, my recommendation is butane. And I'll summarize why, and then I can talk briefly about the other choices. The reason why I like butane is it burns clean, so it doesn't add as many fumes to the inside of your van when you're cooking. Um, it's much safer than propane to store. It's easily available at most stores. It's easier to get rid of the canisters because they're just tin cans rather than the thick propane containers. Um, and the stoves are very common, and you have a couple different choices on the type of butane canisters that you buy, so you have some flexibility there as well. So that's why I choose butane. It burns clean, it's easy to control the flame, it's hot, and it works great. I think probably some of the big downsides for butane are for extreme campers who are using it in -20 temperatures and things, and that's where butane maybe doesn't work quite as well. Propane is probably the most common in store-bought campers, and the reason why is that you can plug it into a propane tank and you can run your furnace and a bunch of different appliances off of the propane, your fridge as well. The downside for me for propane is a couple things. It's dangerous. Propane can kill people quite easily, if you have a leak and you don't detect it. Um, Propane is under extreme pressure, so you do not want your propane tank inside your van. It needs to be outside somewhere, which limits you. People using those small green propane tanks inside their van, it's not a good idea. They're made for outside use only. Um, Propane doesn't burn as clean, so it actually does create more toxic gas when you're cooking. So you want to think about that if you're doing that inside your van. And propane limits you on the type of stove as well. There aren't as many choices. In terms of alcohol, it's a common fuel source for boat stoves. And alcohol, one of the main reasons is it's not that flammable. So it's relatively safe if you were to spill it or have your stove get out of control, you can put it out pretty easily. The downside to alcohol is that it doesn't burn very hot, and it's extremely hard to regulate the temperature. You basically are hot or not. And it's like cooking over a candle. So you have a heat source that's centered in the middle of your pot. It doesn't spread out very well. So I'm not a fan of alcohol. I wouldn't use it again. I've tried it. And it is what it is, but it's not for me. And then I did try a diesel Webasto cooktop as well. And it basically is a glass cooktop, and it has a diesel burner underneath the glass that pulls in outside air, burns the diesel to heat up the glass, and then it blows the exhaust outside. So there's no fumes inside the van, which is nice. The downside, and the other benefit is you can hook it into your diesel tank if you have a diesel Sprinter. The downside is it takes a long time to heat up, so maybe 10-15 minutes before your element's ready to use. And once it is hot, it's very hard to regulate. You can't turn it down easily. The temperature, it is adjustable, but it doesn't move very much. And then the biggest issue I had with it was it heats up the van. So in the warmer weather, it generates a ton of heat inside the van. To the extent that I wouldn't even recommend it to anyone. I don't know who uses them, and I don't know why, but it's expensive, it's complicated, and I don't see the benefit. So to sum that up, butane is my recommendation. That's all I use. That's all I recommend to other people. In terms of electric, I think you have a couple choices. You have the old school sort of coil element, hot plate burners. You've got halogen, and then you have induction. And of those, my favorite is halogen. I think it's easy to control the temperature. You can get a nice simmer, or you can turn it up. It's variable. It's simple, it's inexpensive, and it's relatively efficient. And you get a nice, clean, smooth top. The coil burners are fine. They're harder to regulate the temperature, so most of them are either boiling or it sort of shuts off. It doesn't have a nice variable temperature control. And then there's induction. And the problems I have with induction, I know it's fine for a lot of people. Most people know the downsides. You have to have specific pots. Um, the induction hot plates make a lot of noise. They have fans to cool the induction motors, and so you have to listen to a fan. And I don't want to hear a fan when I'm cooking, especially coming from my hot plate. And then there's a question of the EMF safety, and I've done a bit of research. I don't know exactly where I stand, but I know enough. I've read enough to think there's no point in doing it when there's risk of EMF and the fan noise, and it's more expensive. When you have the option for halogen, which is much safer, cheaper, and it works just as well. So my recommendations are halogen for electric hot plates and butane for your solid fuel source stove. And like I mentioned in the other video, I think it's a good idea to have both. Electric is great when you're at a campground where you're plugged in and you can use their power because you're paying for it anyway. Save your solid fuel source for when you're traveling. And then if you don't have electric plug-ins, you can use your butane stove. And or if you have good lithium batteries, you can use butane and electric, but you have more choice when you do it that way. And even if you like butane better, when you're plugged in at a campground, it's a free fuel source, so why not use it? Anyway, so there are my thoughts. Leave some comments if you have any more to add. Thanks.